Samir, happy Monday.
Thank you. It's Monday.
But a good thing because we're starting a new month of our awesome calendar.
Yes.
Why don't you tell people a reminder of some of the things that we are highlighting throughout the month of February while I get a share here.
Well, you share. Well, a couple of things. One is February is also Black History Month, so we are going to feature a lot of most of the the Man Crush Mondays, Director Tuesdays, and Woman Crush Wednesdays. Most of them will be by Black artists in cinema. And we tried to make a pretty diverse group of people, so it's not just all guys and all straight people. So we're trying to get more diversity even within that. So we're going to be spending large majority of the month focusing on African American or Black artists in cinema. And then, of course, this is the month of Valentine's Day. So me and Amy, being single people, are going to be focusing on the true loves of the single person's life, the cat. So there are going to be a selection of cat movies. Cat movies is our genre this month. And our Cult Classic Fridays are just a mixed bag as usual. A delightful mixed bag.
Yeah, but on brand Valentine's thing, because we can't always just project our singledom onto other people. There are people who are happy.
There will be some romantic comedies. Yeah. Romantic comedy cult classics, so to speak, or classics of some kind, basically. They may not be necessarily cult, although I think in some way each of them qualifies as a cult classic on their own. And we'll get into those as we get further into the month. But I hope everyone enjoys the month to come in terms of book club for movie selections. Certainly there are other aspects of the world that we hope will also be wonderful this month. So let's put out that positive energy and get going.
Luke, we did discuss cats.
We discussed not even considering it.
Yeah, it was more like, should we go this far? And the answer was no.
It was a resounding no. We were both like, we want to put movies that are fun to watch. Cat movies that are fun to watch.
That movie That's gets the purpose of the cat movie.
But we actually found a decent amount of diversity in that selection too. There's actually a documentary about cats that was very famous when it came out. Or I wouldn't know about famous, but it was definitely very well known. It was kind of like, the cat video as documentary, only it had been given a sheen of high class cinematic treatment. So we'll get to observe actual cats slinking and moving around and living in their own worlds where they're plotting to eat you as soon as you fall asleep for too long, or delightful animated fantasies in Paris.
Yeah,
it's all going to be fun. Those will be our lighthearted films mostly of the month, because some of the romantic comedies do have a bittersweet edge. The cat movies do not have that. So there'll always be a reprieve from whatever subjects we're trying to dig into with our movie selections throughout the month. Because, we didn't shy away from anything that was serious or anything like that, So there'll be things to talk about as we go along. Hopefully, most of you will enjoy the discussion. And Amy is enjoying some Lady Gaga Oreos right now.
I am. I realize these are very messy to eat. I realize where a lot of people open them and lick them. And
I know you've got
Lady
red
Gaga
cookies.
Oreos are out. They have
green
cute little
frosting.
things. This is Chromatica, and yeah, I had to get them. I always act like marketing doesn't work on me, and I don't even like Oreos. And
you bought them, and when just from seeing them,
it was Lady Gaga.
Did they ever release those Lady Gaga Polaroid products years? I think they were Lady Gaga inspired. Maybe it was Bjork, but I thought it was Lady Gaga.
I don't know.
And it was supposed to be they had this line of products. I don't know if they ever came out, but one was going to be a pair of glasses that you could snap a photo from.
Oh my God.
And print out on a Polaroid printer. At first I thought it was supposed to be that the glasses would print out the picture. And then it was they didn't give us all the details of how it was going to work. And then it just never happened. But there
That
was
would've
like,
been
look
amazing.
it up. I swear it's out there. And
Someday.
Luke, yes, I remember Sleepwalkers. I thought it was a great disservice to the wonderful slide guitar song Sleepwalk by Santo and Johnny that was used basically as the leitmotif and musical theme of Sleepwalkers. And it's a camp classic, though. We did not consider it, though. It was, I didn't even bring it up. It's so bad. I mean, somebody is killed with a cob of corn in this movie, so it's camp. I'm telling you,
Wow.
camp value, it's up there. In terms of actual cinematic quality, it's way, way down there.
Well,
but
speaking of camp, let's talk about
hey,
before we go into today's subject, who is the living legend Sidney Poitier, and Walter is joining us. This movie we'll be talking about was his pick, and later we'll ask Walter a little bit more about why he picked that movie. But going back to camp, our cult classic Friday pick from last week was Tank Girl. Oh boy, yeah, this was fun.
It had kind of like a formless, free-wielding quality to it that was,
Yeah.
consistently charming and at times really paid dividends. Other times kind of dragged. You're like, okay, you've kind of been on this same free-wielding, formless note for like an hour. Like, when is she going to drive the tank?
Yeah, it does take a
There
while.
was a lot of waiting for her to get in that tank. So not a perfect movie, but because it's so freewheeling, it doesn't seem to place a lot of limits on where it's going to pull references from or what it's going to do with each scene from one to the next. There's like this kind of inventive, energetic quality about it that makes it, and consistently fun to watch. I love the animation. There was a lot of animation sequences in it. I'd forgotten.
What I had read on Friday was that was something else that like the original creators of Tank Girl were kind of disappointed about. They worded it as like they had like forgotten to film a lot of things, and so then stuff had to be animated.
That explains why there was so much. See, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Rachel Talalay was not. You could tell she's not a director. You can tell she doesn't actually know how to craft a film. She's sort of somehow lucked into being a high-level producer because she liked the script for Nightmare on Elm Street, and then she became a producer. I think I can't remember how long before after that she was, but I'm pretty sure she was a producer on that film. But she never. I don't know how much she ever actually learned about filmmaking itself. I think she was always kind of like more like a business perspective. Like she could understand the consumer perspective in the theater kind of person, but she wasn't someone who like knew about cameras and knew about any technical anything, or even really like the unities that create a film or a story. She didn't really understand those things when she was in charge of them, you can tell. But she had a lot of clout. So she was able to get connections for a lot of really amazing music, some really good talent for this picture. So like who was the part where what's his name's head gets cut off, I was so confused. I'm like, I don't understand how he's walking around later with his head.
Malcolm McDowell.
What's the actor's name? I can't remember his name.
Malcolm McDowell.
Malcolm McDowell, yes.
Yeah.
But like, I loved him like as this like cheesy evil villain. I loved. Okay, I'm just gonna talk about some things that I loved. Was that crazy contraption that extracts all the water out of the human body automatically and kills them I'm just like, that is a neat fucking idea. So that was pretty awesome.
When they're in like this eternal drought, and it was one of those things where it's like, I feel like that would actually be a useful device in situations like that. Maybe not to intentionally kill someone, but maybe if they had like just died and then use it.
Right, it's like very useful too, but it was it had like all the long needle prongs, like it proves
a cute little water bottle.
You don't need to show the inner workings of magical technological devices in the future. You just have to show what they do. And I thought that effect was really like it was basically like that weird accordion squeeze bottle thing that just fills up. I'm like, I kept wondering how many takes it must have taken before they got that thing to unfold the right way for the camera. Because can you imagine, like, okay, it got stuck, like leaned over, like a slinky that didn't keep going down the stairs. Like, okay, let's go back to 1. Let's start again. Okay, let's inflate it. Keep it going. Yes, yes, yes. Ah, crap. Okay, back to, that effect looked like I can see them taking a long time on something like that and then be like, oh my God, we forgot to film that whole sequence that explains how we get from here to here.
Yeah, I still think this movie is really fun. I think the creature kangaroo things, I think this would be a much better movie if they weren't in it. Just because it's like otherwise I feel like this is a world that I could buy into. I'm like, okay, it's this futuristic dystopian thing, or like, okay, even though this takes place in like 2030 something, or like, cool, that's not that far off.
I didn't mind that so much as I was not convinced by the makeup effects, because because when we see them at first, we're seeing them through like night vision, kind of like surveillance from inside the tank and from here and there, and so you see them sort of whipping around and they look really monstrous and these dark shadowy figures, and then when you see them, like, okay, you are not matching that really crazy predator looking thing that was wandering around killing people. Like, you guys are committing really like violent acts. Like the deaths are very violent when you commit them, and the characters that we see in the light do not match that kind of viciousness or severity. So I'm like, okay, that doesn't really make any sense. These characters should look scary. Like, they should not look like Barf from Spaceballs, which is kind of what it was like, that same exact makeup, wasn't it?
Kind of, yeah. And if you read about it, that really was an extensive makeup job that they did on all of them, but like, it was crazy. And there were some very recognizable actors underneath that makeup.
Yeah, it took me a while to even realize, aside from those makeup characters, it took me a while to even realize who Naomi Watts was in this story.
Oh, really?
It was first few minutes when she was on, I didn't even realize it was her, because of like, it was very much a She's All That moment again. It was like, put glasses on and a bad haircut, and it's like they're unrecognizable. But she really was. I'm like, oh wait, that's her.
I also read that she is like embarrassed of this movie.
I still think it's a fun movie, like you said. Like, I hate using that word because we use it so often and it could just mean anything.
Yeah.
But it is an enjoyable film.
Yeah, and I think
actually is a delight to watch.
Petty really carries this film. I think she's fun and charming, and witty, and it's, she was really enjoyable to watch in this. And she was so cute, and I don't know, she was. Yeah, it's worth watching for her. But if you didn't see this is available to rent, and it's fun. It's fun.
It was on Tubi. I watched it for free on Tubi.
What?
Yeah, I mentioned it last Friday that it was on Tubi.
I didn't hear it. Damn it.
Yes, it was on Tubi. I watched it for free, girl.
I just saved myself $4.
You could have.
There it is on Tubi. It's on Tubi. Watch it for free.
It's available for free. But yeah, it was nice to see Lori Petty have like her own movie to be like, the lead of, because really the only other thing I think most people know Lori Petty from, I can't think of anything else except League of Their Own, where she's the most annoying character ever. Not ever, but she's the most annoying character in that movie for sure. You just do not root for her.
Yeah.
But like, that's the only thing that she's really, that any movie that a ton of people saw and can remember that she was in. And this is the only other movie that I remember her for specifically. So this was like her shining moment. I like that she sort of grabbed it by the reins.
She's still acting though. I think.
Oh, she is. No, I don't think she's stopped. It's just that you don't think of any other movies as a Lori Petty movie. So this was like her moment to shine, kind of just hers. And she did well with it. So it's something that I think will still be entertaining 20 years from now, or 13 years from now in 2033, because that's the year at which this movie's future is set. At least Rachel Talalay thought, or at least the screenwriter, I should say, not her, thought to put it further in the future. Because there's a lot of other like future stories that they thought, oh, that's so far in the future. I'm
Well,
like,
considering this is from the mid '90s, I guess I mean that would make sense. But now we're like,
it's 2021, people.
yeah, oh yeah. I guess she was in Point Break, which I still haven't seen.
But it's like you don't think when you think Point Break, do you think, oh yeah, Lori Petty's in that? You kind of think like, oh, Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze. So it's like I realize she's done a lot. She's been in a lot of movies. She keeps getting work. It's just movies that you remember her for. And I totally forgot that she was in that movie. I feel so bad because I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this. We should look her up and make sure she's not insane now. But I don't think that she was ever a weird, crazy, unpleasant person. I think she's got a pretty good rep in the business as, being nice to work with and, always serviceable to the role and the director's vision. Like, so, I hope she gets more work because she was always different and fun and interesting, and all those generic adjectives that you say when you can't exactly define what makes them special. But no, I always, it was the big eyes and the short red hair from League of Their Own that I will always see her as, unfortunately. But this movie definitely changes that a little bit.
Her next film, she's coming out. There's one that's in post-production. It's a horror film. It's called You're All Gonna Die.
I like that title. Well, let's make a plan to watch that, Amy, when it comes out.
It came out in last year. She was in one called A Deadly Legend.
We're gonna have to do a little deep dive on Lori Petty later.
So maybe she's thriving in the horror genre, in the B movie horror category. But let's talk about Mr. Sidney Poitier. He's someone that we had wanted to talk about anyway at some point and just hadn't done him yet. But based on Mr. Walter Murray's suggestion, being one of our Patreons, to do A Raisin in the Sun, we thought, well, that's perfect. We're going to do him in February. So let's talk about him. Mr. Sidney Poitier was born February 20th, 1927. He is still alive and kicking. He's 93 now. He is Bahamian American. His family, he was the youngest of 7 children. His family, I think they were farmers in the Bahamas, and he was born very unexpectedly 2 months early in Florida. His parents were there doing work. They were trading, and there was like, okay, here we go. 2 months premature. Here he is. And they had to stay in Miami for an additional 3 months. They were thinking it was just going to be a quick little trip, and then they're like, oh, we had our baby. But that made him an automatic U.S. citizen, which maybe was convenient for him since he eventually lived there. He grew up for the first 10 years on Cat Island in the Bahamas. They didn't even have like electricity, like living very, very rural. But then they moved to Nassau. You never know how to say that?
I just say Nassau.
Not Nassau, yeah. Anyway, but when he was 15, he went to Miami to live with his brother. At 16, he was in New York, became interested in acting, but he was in the Army in World War II. He had lied about his age to enlist. He was assigned to the Veterans Administration Hospital in Northport, New York, and he was trained to work with psychiatric patients. However, he became upset with how the hospital treated its patients, and he feigned mental illness to obtain a discharge.
Wow.
Poitier confessed to a psychiatrist that he was faking his condition, but the doctor was sympathetic and granted his discharge anyway.
Well, when you think about it, if he had continued working in that scenario, he probably would have lost some part of his sanity trying to deal with that system. And so I commend him for highlighting that with his attempt to get discharged, as opposed to some other people who just were homophobic, but then said they were gay and went to Canada to avoid the draft, kind of people, I appreciate that his story of, like he didn't want to stay in the armed forces or he didn't want to stay in that position because of the way people were being treated. They weren't being treated well. Like, speaks to his character right away.
He worked as a dishwasher for a while, and then eventually he was accepted into the American Negro Theater. And I guess like one of his first roles doing that must have been a musical. And he said that I guess he actually has tone deafness and wasn't able to sing. But he was like, well, you know, I'm just going to keep working on my acting. He did have a Bahamian accent that he worked on to get rid of for acting, but eventually became a successful theater actor. He was on Broadway. Yeah, but his first film was in, it was in 1951, and that was in Cry the Beloved Country. However, his breakout role wasn't until 1955 in Blackboard Jungle. I think he became the first Black actor to be nominated for Best Actor, and that was when, which one was that? That was in the one he was in with Tony Curtis. Yeah. The Defiant Ones. Yeah. They were both nominated. And he was the first Black actor to be nominated. He did not win for that, but he did end up winning in 1963 for Lilies of the Field, and that did make him the first Black actor to win in that category. To this day, I think he is still, he's the oldest living recipient of that award. But he still went on to, acting in a whole bunch of films. He turned to directing. His most famous one of that being Stir Crazy with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. He worked with Richard Pryor. He worked with Bill Cosby a little bit. But he has directed a handful of films. From 1995 to 2003, he was a member of the board of directors for the Walt Disney Company. And from 2002 to 2007, he was ambassador to the Bahamas to Japan. So very full range there.
Look, I love this note that Walter brought up about because you mentioned that he worked to get rid of that Sidney Poitier worked to get rid of that Bahamian accent, and Walter's brought in a little note here about one of the things that he did to do that. It was something that a lot of actors from out of the U.S. and even actors from certain areas in the U.S. Some people had to get rid of their accents really to have this sort of generic, English accent. Sometimes it would, force people to adopt that they called that transatlantic accent, that non-existent upper crust, somewhere in the Atlantic accent or whatever, So like they put these kind of restrictions on a lot of people, but I'm wondering because he was rejected at first by the Negro Ensemble because his English was, I assume, his English was not good enough. But look at how much work he put into learning how to be marketable as an actor in explicitly racist culture and system. Even if we do, they always say about old Hollywood, like, oh, at least that was a place where people of color and gay people could get jobs. And it's like, yes, we just couldn't get those jobs on the screen, being ourselves. And so he really kind of was somebody who broke through a barrier because it maybe then started like another stereotype of how you were allowed to be in a film if you had a Black character. The Black character had to be like a saint. They had to be perfect. They had to be beyond reproach. Or they had to be like totally evil, or they had to be a certain, like there's all these rules about like, how you were allowed to present people, not necessarily rules that were written down, but it seemed like all these filmmakers were following this guidebook. Like this was the only way they could navigate a racist audience, is to make them so beyond reproach that you couldn't possibly have a negative thing to say about them, or that you couldn't understand their position. So he kind of became this like respectable, like lovable figure because he was constantly given these characters that are morally in the right, and there's really no shades of gray about them.
That being said, though, he did begin to be criticized for these like over idealized African American characters. I'm just reading this directly. You are not permitted to have sexuality or personality faults, such as his character in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. That's something that he became aware of with these roles, but he was kind of conflicted about it. Of like, I want more roles, but
And
that
also
was the other thing. That's kind of like what was available at the time. If he wanted a leading role,
and he wanted to project. He also was, I'm sure, in some way supportive of projecting a different image of people on screen, so that there's literally another vision that you can refer to.
Yeah, but
So
it's
having
kind of
not
a
had,
double-edged sword there of like, okay, this is a portrayal that maybe hasn't been seen on film, but then if that's all he does, it's like, okay, but there's more to it than that.
so he had
Like,
a challenge to bring that real humanity to these characters, where there's a dark side and a light side, and a person struck, like it really made his job more difficult with all of these roles, because he didn't become famous as an actor just because he played those roles. He became famous as an actor and got more work because he was so good in them, because he could bring more to those roles than what was on the page or what was expected of him. So they're fascinating to watch for, that sort of internal actor artist tension between the image maybe being directed to provide and the image that they know they want to provide as an actor. And as now he's considered an icon, a legend, and there's so much more that we can learn from his career just by going through all of those films. But none of those roles were easily won. He had to work really hard to get those roles. They weren't just offered automatically to him. I think I don't know. I didn't read his biography, but I always wondered what it was like for Black performers when they were trying, like you had to audition for something. What was that process like for an actor in like 1955? What could that be like?
Yeah.
Where you're still maybe not allowed to even walk into certain buildings through the same door as other actors. Like how. Like, what was that? So it would be fun to go back and really dig deep on his career to see like what moments like that must have been for a Black actor in his time. Which I'm sure, obviously there's no door that there's no separate door for you to enter through now in the buildings, but it feels like actors of color still face a huge uphill climb to household name recognition or high profile work in major productions on TV and film. Like, it seems like that hill is getting smaller, but it's still pretty steep for a lot of people.
Yeah, and he being the first Black actor to be nominated for that category and then to win, in 2002 he received the Lifetime Achievement Award or honorary Oscar. And that was the same year that Denzel Washington, who is our Man Crush Monday next week, he won Best Actor that year. And he, this is like almost 40 years later, give or take. He was only the second Black actor to have won in that category at that point. And there have only been a few others since then, since 2002. Yeah, but really, amazing guy. Well-rounded. He was definitely involved in the civil rights movement as well, as were many prominent actors at that time, Black actors. There's a photo of him with in 1963 at the March on Washington with Harry Belafonte and Charlton Heston.
Oh.
It was
Heather down here in the comments has made a nice suggestion for a documentary as well. I can't remember if I don't think I have seen that one, but that would be maybe good homework viewing for one of our other selections, because we're going to be talking about representations of people of color in films as shown by another a Black director that we'll get into. I can't remember if that's this next week, I think, also. But that might be a good thing to add. I might mix that in with my weekend viewing this week. So thank you for that suggestion, Heather.
Well, today's
Looking at some of the
movie is A Raisin in the Sun. And Walter, if you could comment, let us know why this movie stuck out to you in particular. Our Patreons who qualified to pick a movie, we told them we always give some sort of criteria. Now that we have these more themed things that we do, we said, okay, it's February. It's got to be something that either fits in with Black History Month or fits in with Valentine's, or maybe both. And he gave us two options. The other one was The Way We Were, which obviously would be like the Valentine's one. But being that we had wanted to talk about Sidney Poitier, this was just perfect. But Walter, please let us know why you picked this film in particular out of so many that he has done. But this came out in 1961, based on the play that Sidney Poitier, he did originate this role. A substantial insurance payment could mean either financial salvation or personal ruin for a poor Black family. This was nominated for a couple Golden Globes, no Oscars though. Sidney Poitier was nominated for Best Actor in a Drama. When you're looking for this, be sure to watch the 1961 version and not the 2008 version that stars Sean Combs.
Yes, don't watch that one. But
I mean, I'm not judging.
One.
The only thing I really had seen him act in is Monsters Ball, and he actually was really good in it. So maybe, yeah, I'm not, but just that's not the one. Just watch this.
I was gonna say I don't know if he really measures up to Sidney Poitier as in acting quality. So definitely this one is the one to watch. Also, another actress to look for in this movie, and she's there under the title, Ruby Dee, who is very reputable and famous actor, activist. I think she went into producing. She was somebody who really, just as much as Sidney was really devoted to advancing the interests of Black people and performers in the system, and was very outspoken and unafraid to stand her ground and, demand what needed to happen. She's an amazing actress who really spent her whole life trying to do good and make the world a better place through her art and her talents. And so you get to see her in a great film here, in a great role. So that's another added perk to this picture, is because she's someone who really deserves to be celebrated also. And someday there is actually a collection of her films on Criterion. So we are going to get into her later at some point, because it's too important not to. But so there's a lot to look forward to in this movie if you have not seen it. It's also just one of the most famous plays. Oh, sorry, Walter has come through with another comment here.
Well, my family is from Chicago. It's a seminal movie play in my life. I think it also has a universal theme. It could represent any family.
Simple and straightforward. Also, that's also a really powerful part of representation, is that, I can relate just from, being part South Asian and queer person, is that you're always seeing other people's stories and you have to translate them to your life in some way. And so here's a movie that doesn't have to be like, oh, well, I can understand, I can empathize. It's like, no, it's like this one, you feel like this one's, when you get a movie that feels like it's actually speaking to your existence, it validates you and it makes you feel seen as a person. And so movies like this were really important for that. There was not a lot of movies that had like, an all Black cast or a majority Black cast, even though, one of the other movies that we talked about in the past, I think when we talked about Lena Horne, we talked about those two musicals that had all Black casts. And really, how many more movies are there like that? I mean, this movie is 61, so we're talking more than a decade later. And still, there's hardly any movies that represent this very large portion of the population of the country. So, I thank you, Walter. So I'll just end that by saying thank you.
And it looks like for Walter, this was the role that got away. I was going to be in the play. That would have been fun. This movie is, I believe, only available to rent. So I'm sorry about that. But please give this a watch. Remember, watch the 1961 version. If you see Sean Combs, it's not it. It's not the one.
No, it's not the one.
Black and white.
Look at all these great suggestions. Heather posted a link to to information on the documentary. Crystal suggested another one on Netflix that I believe I have watched. That is also very good. Tons of stuff. This has been a great convo in the comments today. So thank you, everybody.
Seeing more from Walter here. His father faced racism in many ways, both during the war and after, in spite of being a hero. I'm assuming that's in spite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole other subject.
You know, one of the many things that I'm happy to see many media companies have gotten on this bandwagon, and you can find content that speaks to this history on many, many streaming platforms this month. You know, obviously there's a cynical edge to it, like, okay, this is what they know they have to do this month, but some of these services have really gone the extra mile to feature work by a lot of artists that you just don't hear about as often. So encourage you, after you watch this movie, to really explore a lot of those options. Criterion has great stuff already on the app. HBO Max, I'm sure, will have some things. Hulu's going to have its own section.
I think all platforms Netflix are really highlighting Black History Month. You know, and we always try to highlight non-straight white actors whenever possible, and filmmakers as well. You know, no matter what nationality they are. But again, especially this month, really wanted to talk about it. Good question, Chad. What is tomorrow's movie? Tomorrow's movie is definitely not a Black History Month movie. Tomorrow is February 2nd. It's Groundhog Day, which means we're doing Groundhog Day, because we just thought we can't not do Groundhog Day. It's such a beloved film. That was the day that it fell on. We probably would have preferred to have put it on a Friday, but it was like, we can't not watch Groundhog Day on Groundhog Day.
If we're going to watch Groundhog Day, that is really the day to do it.
It is.
It worked out, and hopefully we will wake up the next day and it will actually be Wednesday.
Yeah. But the rest of the month, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we do highlight Black History Month, except for Groundhog Day.
Amy insisted. She really, 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 really wanted this film on Groundhog Day.
Well, it's also, I just know how much people love this movie, and it's a fun movie to do, and it's also it's a beloved romance, and it fit in with the February month.
Yes. So this is a week we have 2 romance films, but
sorry, actually 3. 3. Wednesday's film is a romance film with Angela Bassett. Yeah, so we have to sprinkle romance in there somewhere.
Yes.
But for tonight, please watch A Raisin in the Sun. Again, this is available to rent. And then join us tomorrow when we discuss it after the movie, and then move on to Groundhog Day. Please consider looking at our Patreon if you enjoy watching us and want to contribute to us financially. I put the link over there in the comments. Everyone have a wonderful Monday evening. Thank you so much for watching and for all of the comments. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks. And thank you for your last comment as well, Walter. Very well heard. Thank you, everyone. I love seeing all these comments on the show. So we'll see you back tomorrow, I hope.